Hello, fellow Mythrunians. It is that time of week where we do another live stream. This is Paul, if you didn't know that, and this is Mythruna, and this is where we do some development on Mythruna while we all watch and talk about games and whatnot. Down there at the bottom of this particular screen, you can see that there's the link to the test engine build. It's kind of super secret, but not really. The password there is Dragon. So that'll really get you started if you wanted to download the January release. We're currently working on what was supposed to be the February release, but we're looking for middle of April at this point. Let's thank the patrons before we get started. Teamwork makes the dream work, and I got to tell you, every time that notification comes in from Patreon that I got a little bit more money to pay for my servers and stuff, it's really cool. So thanks, guys. All right, without further ado. Oh man, because I'm like redlining my mic here, so that's unfortunate. Like you can see there, I'm nearly redlining it. I could probably bump up the, let's see, advanced audio properties. Does it let me? Yeah, see, I already have it. Like I could probably try to get it up to maybe 1,000%. So I mean, I can get it up a little bit, but it's not actually working, right? It's not. Oh, maybe I have to hit a close first. Anyway, let's try 950%. Yeah, so now I'm redlining every now and then. But yeah, so we've got almost 20 dB gain. Hopefully that makes it better for some. I'm sorry that you can't hear me. Oak, I hope you can still follow along. So I actually wanted to have the client running already to show you what I've done so far, and I got like sidetracked by well, I'll show you. I was not able to get a lot done with this week, but I did get a lot done last weekend, and then I got wrapped around trying to get something. I did like Monday, Tuesday night, I tried to get something working that actually doesn't matter at all. So I'll explain that too. It's just like one of those little, when you're a developer and you're, I mean, I don't know if I consider myself an artist, but I try to put artistry into my things, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I get wrapped around the axle about specific things. And in this case, I wanted the first hit to take a section of the block away, right? And let me show you what I'm talking about. So we'll get to that in a second, because I also want to show you what I added. So in order to like facilitate what we're doing, I added a pickaxe, a little pickaxe. And so this is really interesting, and this is what I got sidetracked on just before the live stream, is for a long time the quality of this particular normal map has bugged me, because when I first started developing, I wasn't really thinking about it, and you know, I would develop these textures and these normal maps, and I just save them as JPEG or PNG, whatever it was convenient to do so at the time. And so this particular normal map is one of the ones that's saved as a JPEG, and so you can actually see the JPEG artifacts when you get up close like this. And that's the thing about this particular thing, is that like you have to get pretty close to the rocks to swing it. So you see that, yeah, we'll have to work on the hand placement at some point. But you can see like all the like artifacts. And so right before the live stream, I was trying to get to the point where, let's see, I found the original normal map texture, and I saved it as a PNG, and I was about to integrate it in to see if it improved the look a little bit. So you can actually join me on that particular journey, because I'm going to take a screenshot right here. But the other thing I did was, see, come on. So if we go back to our test object and we go the chip test. So the thing I talked about I got sidetracked on Monday and Tuesday was when you first click the object, I wanted that initial one to take away the block. And it actually does, it just doesn't show up visually. So if I click over here, you can see that it did actually take that initial block away. But like the first time you click on it, I wanted visually to see that. And it's not super important that that happens, because when you're swinging an axe against it and it's taking partial blocks off, you're going to hit it again right away, and you'll see that. but yeah, I spent a bunch of time dealing with it, and it's going to require a refactoring that I've meant to do for a long time of my model handling in order to make that work. Yeah, so see, these are, yeah. If you click too fast, oh, I clicked through and got the, so there's still some glitches to work out there. Let me keep time from. So the other thing I dealt with, yeah, that's a problem I'm going to have to fix. Before we get back to this normal map thing, one of the other things I fixed was if you chop an object at night, like so if I chip this one away, you know, before, you guys didn't know this because it never got released, but before when you'd go nighttime, it would turn dark even if you had light nearby. And in fact, it's doing it again. Or maybe that's just the way it is. So like if I click here, it should pick up the light. Yeah. So we hadn't actually removed a block enough to have the fire show through, which is why it. But anyway, so it tries to pick up the lighting from the surrounding area, and eventually that'll get smoother. Right now, it does the same thing as. So eventually, the objects themselves should be smoother too, because one of the problems now is that whereas like the blocks have smooth lighting, the objects don't, so they pick up whatever lighting is in that particular cell. But eventually, even the objects will have, you know, a range of lighting, and they'll do smooth lighting within the light. Ooh, we got an owl sound. So anyway, back to the. That's sort of what I got done. I got, you know, the essentials for this stuff done, and this is fully physics enabled. So like I can actually walk through here and get trapped in the mire. So I just look forward to being able to like actually like carve out caves and stuff and mine things. I think the yeah, I gotta fix that grass thing. Yeah, so here's a super secret idea that you guys can be early access sort of what do I want to call it? Spoiler, right? I think the idea is going to be that if you're chopping, and we'll work on having like an overhead chop as well, because this one's kind of like lame on its own. But if you're chopping, oh yeah, because they're objects now. If you're chopping and you detect like there's some indication or hint because your character has this ability or because you notice a glint or whatever, if you're say chopping this area and you notice that it glints like there might be a gem there, then probably the mechanic is going to be that you have to kind of chop around it to free that one block. So because if you chop the gem directly, it might smash into little bits. And you know, the mechanic is that the little bits are useful too because they'll be part of magic and stuff. But if you want whole gems to sell, you're going to have to maybe be careful about how you mine them out. Because really, if you wanted to just wholesale remove material, the wand is way better for that. The whole point of using this little guy is that you want to like get material out of there that you wouldn't normally get. Happy Friday, Lando Calrissian. All right, so let me real quickly mess with the that texture before we get started. And there's some log that's happening like a ton that I think I'm going to disable. One of the physics logs. So the activity's logging a lot. Yeah, here we go. Player driver, player driver, player driver, player driver. Player driver and activity are both logging context. So let's get, I have player driver open and activity open. Who's getting the context? So let's, for now, turn that off. Is it this? Okay, that's just going to become annoying. Okay, so part 1 is what we're looking for. No, it's not. Log info, yeah, part 1. There we go. So yeah, these are sort of showing the kinematics, which I do in a different place now. I don't think I need to actually do this anymore. But maybe. We'll leave it in for now. And so that'll reduce the logging tremendously, because this even happens when I'm standing on stuff, which is really annoying. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. We don't need that up, but I would like my little YouTube widget that I forgot to bring up. Show me what everybody's doing. Ooh, we got 7 on, according to that. Good times. Okay, so let's fix the texture real quick. To do that, I've got to go and rerun the shaper, and materials are not something you can edit in the shaper. Yeah, no. We need materials.json right there. So if I look for rock 6 norm, is that the one? Yep. Replace that with PNG, because I made a new one that's PNG. Okay. And so then run the shaper. Like, I don't know if you guys remember me talking in March about how I had all these mouth problems going on. But like I had this irritation in the top of my throat, and then I bit my tongue, and I had trouble eating stuff. Shortly after that, I lost most of my sense of taste. I could still smell stuff just fine. But the side effect of that was that, oh, interesting. The side effect of that was that I drank Pepsis and stuff much slower, because they just weren't, didn't taste right. But I think my sense of taste is starting to come back a little bit, because I'm going through my Pepsis much clearer, much quicker, which is kind of nice. Most food tasted kind of bland at first, and then turned into something that tastes more like soap. And I have no idea what was actually wrong with me, but I'm glad that I'm getting some of my sense of taste back, because that was getting annoying. All right, let's try this. So we've got the right texture name now. Apparently when I saved it, I added an extra extension. And if any of you are medically inclined and know what that might have been, still remains to be seen if I will actually get all of my taste back. I just thought it was weird to lose my sense of taste, but not lose my sense of smell. I could still smell all kinds of stuff going on in our house. We occasionally have a okay, Stone Cube is going to be up here. We occasionally have, like, over the 25 years or whatever I've lived in this house or whatever, we occasionally had mice, and invariably that means you end up playing the Where's the Dead Thing game, because a mouse will die, and then you have to hunt it down because it makes a smell, and I'm the first one to smell it usually. Anyway, so we're playing that game right now, and it's and now I'm not so sure if it's that or that we've got a sewer pipe leaking somewhere, because we can't. Anyway, this is like just random stuff. Anyway, this looks much better. It's not great because it's only 128, but it no longer, to me at least, has the JPEG artifacts. So in the game it should look better if we do this compile materials. Anyway, sorry for the random little view into my life as someone who tries desperately not to be house poor, with all the new problems that come up. So we'll see if this is just a we'll see. This weekend I've got to actually play the serious Where's the dead thing smell coming from? Game. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we live so in Northern Virginia, in the suburbs. Um, it's there's quite a bit of wilderness. Like we get foxes and raccoons and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I live on a decent sized yard. It's like less than half an acre, but um, we get deer wandering around in our on our street, and the dog always like that, and foxes at night and stuff like that. Occasional coyote, I guess. I've never seen one. Um, at any rate, we are quite a bit in wildlife, and so yeah, mice somehow find their way into the home, and then we deal with them. And then a few years later, they come back. It's funny. My very first experience in this house, we hadn't even lived in for very long, and I was sitting on the couch watching TV, and at that time we had like a stereo system hooked up, with like nice surround sound speakers up in our main TV room. See, I think that looks better, but we'll do a comparison shot real quick. Let's see, I can go. Part of it's going to be different in time of day. But yeah, I mean, it's just. I think it's better. It's not great. I need to make separate 200. I need to make separate high-res textures for when we're up close like this. But since we're going to be up close, I wanted to get rid of the JPEG artifacts. Anyway, I was sitting there on the couch watching TV, and I heard like this crackling sound, like it was crackling coming from the speakers. And so I'd lean forward, and it would stop. And this was right after Christmas, like that first year we were in the house. And so then I'd lean back, and I'd start watching TV some more, eating candy out of my stocking that was sitting, next to me on the floor there. And I'd hear the sound again, that crackling sound, like the speakers were messing up. And so I'd lean forward again. Well, it turns out that there was a little mouse down there sitting watching TV with me. He had eaten a hole in the side of my stocking, and he was pulling candy out, and it was the candy wrappers that were making the sound. And I'm like, oh no. We knew we kind of had mice because we'd heard them and seen the traces, little mice poops in little places, but not much. And so I was like, it was my new house, and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking Tom and Jerry. I was like, oh, we'll live and let live. But I was like, nah, once he's sitting on the floor watching TV with me eating my candy, it's like, no, we need to do something about that. And we tried the humane traps, and we did a bunch of different things before we settled on a strategy. Yeah, so that was just kind of funny. It was a bold little critter. I don't know what kind of relationship he had with the previous owners, but we were not going to let that stand. Anyway. Yeah. I think it's funny how squeamish I was about the dead things that you have to deal with as a homeowner, in your backyard, inside, whatever. When I first bought a house, and I didn't have like a landlord to run to, and so like I'm just so callous about the whole thing now, because things would get caught in the swimming pool skimmer and stuff, and I used to get really upset about finding a squirrel in there or whatever, and like, no, gotta get the garbage bag, whole bunch more chlorine. Anyway. But I find if I carefully manage the chlorine to keep the levels even but low, I find that I have a lot fewer things that end up falling into the pool and not being able to get out again. I think I don't know if this is true, but my theory is that the lighter chlorine load gives them a little more of a fighting chance if they want to get out. Wow, this is a really grim. Let's change the subject. Okay, so back to what we're trying to do. I should have left the thing running. That's why I left it running and went over here and looked at the things over here. Because I need to reassess what debugging I left in and what debugging I turned off. Because there was like the contact debugging, and I think I've turned that off. But we're going to want it for this next phase, right? The other thing you'll notice is that I'm still removing whole blocks instead of partial blocks. The logic to do partial blocks is not that hard, and so I've got that working in other places. So I've been concentrating on getting all of the infrastructure around, the block objects and stuff working. Oh, good. It's dark again. We seem to spend a lot of our time booting the game at night. Okay, so what we want to do, let's see. Is it in here where I can show? Because I think what I want to be able to turn back on are the debug stuff. So if I click down here, okay, so the debug arrows are still working. I must have just turned off the contact stuff because, when we hit, it was leaving little contact debug arrows, and I must have turned that off. Okay, so activity I could probably turn off too. I was going to say something else back there too. So that'll disappear in a little bit. But okay, so who was producing that? I think it was the contact system, which is what we're going to have to bring up next, because that's definitely where we want to start tonight. So I was making who was adding the what do I call the so there's oops, wrong folder. So debug shape. So let's find core find.name star.java grep. Cannot type tonight. Yeah. Contact system. So we're supposed to be creating them. Oh, but we're not logging any of this stuff. Did I turn it off? Yeah. Okay. So I've got all this kinematic stuff turned off. That's also why we're not seeing all of those logs. But this is what I wanted to start playing with. So if we put this code back in, and so we'll see that there's this k velocity, which is the kinematic velocity of that particular point. So I'm curious to see a couple things. Oops. So where's my little document? We'll maybe start taking notes on what we want to get done today. So yeah, old stuff, right? Okay, so translate to tool breaking to do. 1. Things we want to accomplish. We want to detect hits and translate that into sub-block removal. Filter the hits based on type of, or based on force and direction. This is kind of like the same thing, because once we detect hits and we translate them into subblock removal, basically call the destructible. Yeah, I was spelling it right for once. Object system. Then that guy can filter based on the information we provided. We just have to make sure we provided all of the information necessary. When I'm using the test one, I'm just basically whatever I click on, I remove. Whereas in point of fact, we want to take the physical contact of the object into account. And the way I imagine this to work is that if you have oops, yeah, so now that was the right key, it's just slow. So if you're striking with a tool like an axe, right, that's got, you know, a wide blade like this, it's going to hit in multiple places. So, you know, you're hitting some surface, right? So the benefit of that is that it's going to potentially do damage to all these spots that it's going to hit. The downside should be that it should spread that kinematic force, or spread the force across all of these. So if it's a particularly hard object, you might not even penetrate. Like if you tried to use your axe to hit stone, you know, you're going to blunt your axe. It's not actually going to chip away at anything. An axe is not designed for that. You need a pickaxe that's got like a sharp point, and that's going to put all of your force into one spot, and then you'll be able to remove that. But the benefit of this is if you're chopping something soft like wood or even dirt, although I wouldn't do that, that you're going to have further penetration because the wood is soft, and so you're going to actually remove larger sections and get your tree chopped down faster. So this is the idea behind, you know, sort of building in these physical properties. And I actually imagine that even though I'm building Mythruna's physics based on real life tools that we think of, you know, axes and things, and I'm trying to make the physics work right with those, I fully believe that, you know, like any game physics engine, there's going to be ways to trick the physics engine, or little bugs or glitches or edge cases that you guys will find that may make, you know, Mythruna, since you can customize and make your own tools out of whatever blocks you want, right? You guys may figure out more efficient tools that don't resemble any real world tool at all, just because you figure out how to, you know, exploit the system. Perhaps, for example, and I don't know if this is true, perhaps it turns out that an axe is actually more efficient if it's a bunch of spikes like this, right? Because that tricks the physics engine into letting you penetrate farther or something. It won't in this model because these would actually be treated the same, but perhaps there's going to be these weird little loopholes that tool makers find, and so they kind of build Mythruna specific tools, which I look forward to seeing what that might look like. You know, like in real life, a two-bladed sword, you know, in a V shape would be ridiculous, but perhaps because of the way Mythruna handles swords, perhaps that actually works out okay for you and you don't end up chopping your own leg off. I don't know, right? But they're the kind of things I think about, which would be kind of cool. Ooh. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I ended up clicking outside of that and removing that without actually getting the UI back into a good state. And so let's go ahead and minimize that again. Okay. So what did I want to see? I wanted to see that I have my so I should be getting my little, yeah, whack. So the idea being that, you know, the more direct your force is, you know, versus glancing, like if I'm chopping like this, that's going to do a different kind of removal than when I'm chopping like this and I'm getting, you know, real penetration with that really sharp point. You know, initially all these objects are going to act the same, and I don't know if I'm going to get the spreading of load and all that other stuff. So an axe and a pickaxe, they'll all probably work the same. But that's where I'm headed. And the other thing is, if you're just walking around and you're just bumping it, you know, you're not, I need to like turn on and off the swinging. You shouldn't be like chipping blocks away just because you happen to be dragging your tool along the surface. So there's still some issues with the kinematic force calculation because, like I have to remember, I think it's, the blue is the surface normal and the yellow is sort of the kinematic force. And for some reason, it's just as strong. Oh, because I'm not taking it against the normal. So the force should be dotted against the surface normal. So these would be stronger because they're directly against the surface normal than these. Yeah, I got so many like debug statements coming down. So these are hardly any force at all. And we'll make maybe a different debug to show that, what I'm talking about. The dot product is magic math, by the way. If you ever deal with vectors, like it's been like the cornerstone of every 3D graphics trick you've ever seen since way back in the days of Doom. The dot product and cross product can be used for really sort of tricky things. And if you don't know what a dot product is, if you have, where's my whiteboard? There it is. So if you have two vectors, I think I've been over this before, right? So if you have, this vector and this vector, and you do a dot product, it essentially, the dot product will give you the distance along this vector of where this point would be if this was a right triangle, right? So this basically it's also multiplied by the cosine. So you get, the dot product is the cosine essentially of this angle. And it works, no matter what direction these are, you'll still get that, so it's a great way to find the angle between things. It's a great way to find sort of relative direction. In this case, where we have a surface normal and we have some kind of glancing blow, if we dot product them, we're going to get this little section right here. Whereas if the blow came in this direction, we're going to get like this really big magnitude. So the dot product is magic. And actually, if you get really deep into the math, even a matrix multiplication is just a bunch of dot products. If you're ever curious to have me explain that, I can. But yeah, it's like magic. I love the dot product because it's like, for a 3D vector, it's just like 3 multiplications and 2 adds. And from that, you get the cosine, which is back in the days when trig was really expensive to do on a computer, that was magic. And that's why games like Doom work at all, because you can use the dot product to figure out where your ray intersects a wall and stuff like that. Okay, so I think one other thing we want to do is visualize that dot product. So what we will do is we will calculate the force that actually hit the wall by taking the dot product. We'll call it direct force is going to be the k velocity, I think, previous contact points, and then we use that to, should be whatever our yellow arrow, excuse me, was, and that was using, yeah, so since we're going to be using that in multiple places, let's make a k velocity. So this is calculating, it does a bunch of math when that point on the axe hits something. It's tracking where the previous position of that was versus the next position, and does some math to figure out where the previous version of that contact point was, like last frame, and where it is this frame, and from there we can get the velocity of that particular point on the axe. And so every little point that hit the wall, we can calculate its sort of kinematic velocity, which is if we're standing still and we're swinging the axe, it's all kinematic velocity. Not because we're moving. We actually can't tell the difference in that actually, even though I call it kinematic velocity, it includes the player velocity in there too, because it's world position. Anyway, I digress. So we've got the k velocity there, and we've got the contact normal. So if we dot k velocity with the contact normal, that should be like our direct force. And so then if we take that and make a new entity and color it, we'll call this one, yep, we want it to be at the contact point. We want it to be type arrow. We're going to do the contact normal, but we're going to multiply it by the direct force. Direct force is going to be negative, though. So we want the negative direct force, and we'll make this one red. And maybe we'll make it stick around just a little longer. So let's let it stay 10. No, we'll make it just a little longer. We'll leave the other ones at 10 seconds. Okay, so now we should be able to see. I'm trying to wrangle all the parameters I have to pass on to the destructible object system so that it knows what to do with that information. The other thing I have to do eventually, whether I do it tonight or not, I'm not sure, is collect all of the contacts for that frame from that object, so that I can average the force. To your comment, Oak, about the smart way to do it, essentially deciding that I wanted players to be able to craft their own weapons and tools and interact with the world. One of the easiest ways to do that is to have the tools interact physically. So that's the way I'm trying. It's not an easy way, but it's the easiest way. So it forces me to try a bunch of things that maybe are kind of too hard or too ambitious, but we'll see how they work. We're not getting. Okay, so basically it's negative. I have it backwards. If we yes, if we were to graze this, what? Oh, you know what it is? I bet it's the blue. Yeah. Okay, so let's see if we get, or if it's fully backwards. Oh yeah, both of these are pointing in the same direction. I've already, okay. I already set them up. Anyway, I can potentially, so if you make a sword, is it a good sword or a bad sword? Is it going to cut armor better than some other sword? Is it going to penetrate armor? Is it going to be lighter? Or if you have lower strength and higher dexterity and so on and so forth. All of these things are based on the physical properties of the object. And so I would like to build the system around the physical properties of the object if I can. I have a fallback position if that doesn't work, which means that when you craft a sword, I have to perform physical tests against it and internal to the game, right? You create a sword and I do math and potentially a couple quick, internal physics simulations to figure out how that thing, and then I treat it like a regular, D&D style object with stats. I would prefer not to do that because I like the idea of what I was talking about before. I'm like waving my hands like you guys can see it. I really should set up a camera at some point. Like I was saying before, I think that you guys will find interesting ways to create Mythruna specific designs that might not work in the real world, but for some reason work really well in the game. And when I start to think about the magic system I want to develop, it's going to be way easier to do that if everything else is already physically based. So the further I can go down this path, I think the more interesting the results will be. Yeah. Yeah, so yes, if yeah, most of my systems have that in common. Yeah, they all have that in common, and that the whole house of cards comes down if I can't figure out how to do it. But I think it'll be kind of cool in the end if I can. And maybe at some point, the game does well enough that I can, hire physics experts and stuff to come and fix all of my weird physics bugs and make it work better. So if we can get it to the point where it's, the 80% solution, and fun to use, I think that'll be interesting. So I'm kind of wasting time here to see if the force lines work right, just as a confirmation, because this will be sort of the minimum that we use tonight before enhancing that further. So with this, a glancing blow should be small, and the other thing that is the problem is that because those lines are in the same place as the blue lines, we won't necessarily see them. So it's good that I left them sticking longer. But anyway, so okay, so if we go boink. All right, look at that. We've got some nice little force lines. Yeah, so we hit harder over here than we did over here. We hit just kind of, oops. Yeah, at some point I really need to have a slower, yeah, so we're hurting barely any there. If we hit like this, whack. We hit really hard right there. In fact, we came through a little bit. So I think we have enough to send some information through to the, like that would have been a really hard hit right there with my pickaxe. Yeah, and we had those glancing blows as I ran across. They did almost nothing. Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, these are the ones I worry about. I need to be able to turn the stuff off unless the weapon's actually being swung, like directly interacted with, because that's just gonna. So that'll be a problem for another night. Or another time. I'm not going to worry about that tonight. But yeah, so I think we've got the information we need to figure out if I'm chopping that block or not, right? Okay. Awesome. So left as an exercise for another time is to for a given frame, and I think this, yeah, so basically between updates, an update happens once a frame, we would collect all of these kinematic contacts, or tool contacts, yeah, basically in this point here. It's interesting, I do this before. Anyway, whatever the case is, contacts that we determine are actually tool hits. I would collect them all in one frame and deliver them all at the end of the frame. And so right now we'll just sort of deliver them as we go. And that means I need to start adding an interface, and we need to build in some more stuff here. We gotta like private, destructible. What do we want to call that? I just get tired of calling it. Like, I don't mean the, I'm not changing the class name, but when I refer to this, yeah, I guess we'll just call it the destructible system. I'm getting much better at typing destructible system, It's funny, I develop, I've talked about this before, but I developed little tricks for typing fast and moving around and doing cut and pasting and stuff. And the all of those tricks are, an IDE just confounds them. I have to use different sets of tricks, because when I do that, it's trying to put things in. It automatically put parentheses in for me, and when I cut and paste things, it tries to format them for me. It's like, no, I'm just about to move that. I just put it there temporarily so I could grab it again. Okay, so we have the destructible system in here. Let's say if false, we're gonna make all this stuff. Break. For now, we're gonna turn off all that debugging and just pass on the information to the destructible system. And what are we going to pass? You might ask. Well, that is a very good question. We have, so the way the contacts are set up, the first body is always the primary mover. If you had a static contact, it's always going to be the second one. So you may only have the one. Eventually, that's not going to be good enough. When we talk about, like battles and stuff, right? My sword hitting your armor, your sword hitting my sword. Then I have to deal with both K1 and K2, and that K1 is potentially doing damage to K2, and K2 is potentially doing damage to K1. I have to worry about that, but today I don't. All of the contacts I'm worried about tonight are, the body 1, part 1, hitting some other thing. And so I believe we need to pass in, what does this destructible object system want now? We're going to have to make a new chop block, or a chop object. Yeah. No, we just want a chop and let it figure out what it's supposed to do. And what do we need to pass? We need to pass the contact location. If we have the body doing the action, we probably want to pass that, in case we have to pull properties from that. Entity ID. Source. Or what do I want to call that? Chopper. That's easy. Okay, and what else do we want to pass? We want to pass the contact point, the contact normal probably, and I'm going to go ahead and do K velocity as well. So contact point, contact normal, K velocity. So we'll let the destructible object system decide what it wants to do with those values, right? So let's just say destructible. Oh, I have it down there. Chop. And so we have body 1 ID, I believe. We want MC contact point. Maybe we want the contact of the source as well. What is the kinematic contact? It is well, I'm getting wrapped around things I don't need today. Contact point. Contact normal. K velocity. Okay. So entity ID, point, normal, force, basically. Entity ID, contact, we'll call it CP, norm, velocity. Okay. So what do we do with that? Either we're hitting something that is already a block. We actually know. We know if it's a block or not. So let's... Yeah, because only our first hits are going to be against a block. But we know in here already whether it's a block or not. We actually can check. Because if I already know the target, I might as well include it. Contact system, which I could do. So entity ID target equals MC body 2 not equal to null. C body 2 ID or null. Okay, so if I know it has a target, then I can translate. Alright, so entity ID target. We might have a target. If we don't, if target equals null, we're going to assume it's a block of the world, and then we can just call chop block with the, for now, contact point normal, and do I use dir for anything? I don't. Yes, chop object. Oh, but that it doesn't use it for anything either. Yeah, in fact, I'm not even sure I passed anything interesting from the other side. Anyway, contact point. Oh, block loc. We might have that too. Over here. I'm going to have to look up mblock contact. Anyway, I hope you all had a great week so far. Somewhere I have this open already. Yep. So the issue is I don't actually know which block, so I'm gonna have to calculate it. That seems straightforward, but it's really not. As it turns out, the you have to involve the surface normal. So if you have, so say you have a block that exactly matches, pretend that exactly matches the grid, right? And you hit here, you know, at 0, that's fine. If I take the floor of this, you know, this is, you know, 0.5, oops, you know, and this is 1, right? If I take the floor of this, I still get, you know, this cell, you know, say this is, you know, cell 34, right? So this is 34 even, this is 35, and this is 34.5, right? Anywhere in here, if I take the floor, I'm going to get 34, which is the correct block cell. But if I'm over on this edge, there's a reasonable chance I'll get 35 instead, because exactly 1. So then I end up getting this block, and that's not the block I want. So what you end up doing is, if you're within the block, you don't care. You know, if you're within that cell, you don't care. But if you're right on the border of a cell, then what you want to do is whatever the surface normal is, you want to subtract a little bit so that you get in here. So the surface normal is this way, you subtract a little bit just to make sure no math errors get you in a different block. And so there is a calculation I already do in the chop object. Yeah, if on border, cell ID subtract, yeah. So I have to do something similar. Why do I call it cell ID? Oh, because I'm turning it into, or is that cell? No, that's cell D. I get it. Cell D. It's the double version of cell. Okay. So we want to do something similar here. If the, so with the contact point, right? Vec3D cell D equals CP. Oh, it's already a Vec3D. So if on border, and on border basically just, yeah, I need to get rid of this. This is going to kill us. On border just basically says if it's within some margin of error of being right on the border of a cell, then we will, yeah, then we'll do special processing. If on border CP then Vec3I block. So if it's on the border, otherwise the block is going to be whatever the floor of CP is. Else, block is going to be CP. What do I use as my I subtract, yeah, just a little bit, right? CP contact point minus, a little bit of the normal. Okay, and so then when I chop block, I click block loc, normal, and since we're expecting a dir, no, I'll leave it velocity because nothing's using it, so we'll change this to velocity. At least I think nothing's using it. Let's call it C velocity. Just confirming that nothing's using this. Yep, nothing's using it. We'll call it the contact velocity. Cool. I was looking ahead when I did that. So velocity, we're good. And we'll return. So we chop block. So if we don't have a target yet, we'll do that. Otherwise, we can actually just call chop object. And that is easier. Right? We probably need to make sure that it's a type of object we can chop. Oh, we do right there. Yeah, perfect. All right, so target, contact location, norm, velocity. Okay. So we're about to see what could go wrong here. So one thing is there's some tools that you just don't want to have mess with things, and that's where being able to, so this is like completely bypassing the scripting system, right? And that's unfortunate, but where the scripting system will come in is how the activity is engaged, where you're swinging the thing. And so that will like potentially set up how the contact system reacts to that based on the kinematics. Perhaps it nerfs the kinematics for some reason, so that even though we're using certain blocks as a stand-in for something that doesn't, if you're waving a pencil around, we don't want it to chip away at trees and things like that kind of thing. Since we use norm, what's it complaining about? Vec3D cannot be converted to vec. Oh, yes, of course. Anyway, because we use regular blocks to simulate other objects too, just because they look like that, there could be reasons that the physics engine needs to be told to ignore certain things. But that's a separate problem. One of the other things I need to work out soon is the substance matrix and the substance types for blocks. I think I talked about that before. Stone might be filled with, certain types of base level stone, whereas dirt would be, mostly dirt and maybe some stone, and depending on soil quality and wetness and so on. And any of the composite materials like mudstone and stuff would give you multiple materials. So I have to figure out what their substances are, and then the substance matrix basically says, when this substance type hits this substance type, what happens, what sounds are made, what effects happen, what kind of, who wins in a chopping fight, sort of the hardness scale, right? Okay. Uh-oh. Did I just chop into the ground by accident? So that is one thing I have to be careful of. So I think if everything's working right, I should be able to chop this stuff. Oh yeah, check it out. Burp, 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 bump, burp, bump, bump. Oh yeah, check it out. Burp, burp. Now I have to deal with the fact that I accidentally chopped the ground somehow. But this is a pretty decent proof of concept, I think. And so now I can get in with those contact points and figure out how to properly, do the partial blocks. Because just clicking is unsatisfying. If your axe, kind of glances through, oops. Oh no. So I have to turn off the, Okay. So if we're not already swinging by the time we get here, uh-oh. Oh, because we're walking on that other object, it creates a whole bunch of problems for us. Okay, so this is working. And the rest are details. I mean, very important details, but we're getting there, right? And so I still need to set up the logic for, when you've removed enough of this block, the block is actually gone. Because if we wait 5 minutes, it's all going to go back to the way it was. I should be able to hit this too. Yep. Oh, that's interesting. We can't actually get close enough to chop down there. Huh. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. So I got to turn that off because it's really annoying. Or set it up to not be on the drag and open. It's got to be on the click. Yeah, so... Yeah, we ended up creating multiple ones of these for some reason. And I just, screwed up a whole bunch of stuff by moving them. That's not supposed to be allowed. You're really not supposed to be able to drag these. Because this is going to cause problems in a second when that... But yeah, I think maybe my feet are or something. There's some confusion going on there, but basically it works, right? So the other big thing, wow, it's already 10 o'clock and I've like got what I had planned to get done. And usually I've been trying to run the live stream longer. So maybe we'll figure out something else to work on. Or maybe we can finish some more of this. But I'm pleased that this worked the first time. Boink, boink, boink. Yeah, I gotta fix that. So I don't know why those happened. If I come up here and I drop down, do I hit hard enough to create a... Nope. In fact, that's another thing I have to work on. The terminal velocity for falling is not... It basically you reach only like 10 meters per second or something. Which is not a very fast falling speed. Yeah, I gotta turn that off. That needs to be on click and not just up. And somehow we keep regenerating these. I don't know where they're coming from. Ah, suddenly they're all back again. Okay, so let's see if we get more back when I'm doing this. Is it a side effect of chopping? I mean, obviously we want like overhead chops and stuff too, right? I've only got the side-to-side chop at the moment. But it's working. And that's like, that's pretty encouraging actually. And we might need a longer pickaxe if we want to be able to like chop stuff at the ground. Or maybe that's a limitation. Maybe you have to crouch. Yeah, so that turned back into an object. Alright, so did that. Oh, hello, I just fell into the ground. Oh. There is actually a physics object there. Yeah, so there is sort of this long-standing bug where, let me turn that off. Let's keep it daytime for a minute. There's sort of this long-standing physics bug where sometimes static objects leave their collision shapes behind when they disappear. And I gotta fix that. So that is step number one, is to fix that look thing, because that is going to drive. So the fact that it's still got a default action, and when I release it doesn't look, that we got to stop right away. First of all, you shouldn't be able to look at these. I would say you shouldn't even be able to right click on them. They shouldn't act like real objects. I was just about to walk up there. That's so unfortunate. Okay. So we got stuff to work out. We need to make these not act like real objects. It's cool that it left the... Oh, yeah, so see, I bumped it. Yeah, so we have to also work on... So let me not lose track of these things. We need to work on not... no actions for destructible objects, and disable look if dragging, only on click. So that's kind of what's happening, is that the other thing is casual tool movement should not engage destructibility. Okay, so these things we have to take care of, and I'm willing to stick around for a little bit to do it. So there's so one of the things is, let's pick a different tool for a second. Let's just use the regular object tool, right? So if I have an object here, what happens now, I think if I left click and look away, yeah, that's what it is. So if I left click on it, it does the default action. But if I left click and look away, it still does the default action. And that's not right within a certain amount of error. Like I should be able to click a little bit and do it. In fact, this was a problem with the right click before, is that if you right clicked and dragged it, yeah, so see, sometimes you would click just a little bit and you wouldn't get that right click because it would drag it a little bit. And so, but the default action should only work if you click and barely move, right? So that's something I got to fix regardless. Because that affects these. But the other thing is these shouldn't interact like regular, because that's what happens if I look at that and move away. And so even when we're using the tool, because the thing is you do want, while you're carrying a pickaxe, right, you still want to be able to interact and talk to things, or sit in the chair or open the door. These things you still want to be able to do that. But if you're clicking and holding to invoke this, essentially you give up your default action. You're not going to do it. Only if you click. And see, like the tool doesn't even engage right away. It takes it a second to engage. So that's something I have to fix. But this is really neat. Yeah, so that's really annoying. That is step number 1 to fix that. But I'm encouraged. That's really cool. Yeah, if that was working, I would go chopping around underground just to see how that works. But that and being able to we have the overhand click perhaps. So there's 2 things that happen that prevent this from working well. Right now, all of the player models, no matter which direction you're looking, have their backs rigidly straight, right? And eventually, when you're looking down, the player model will be bent over, right? And so when you're looking down and you're swinging your axe, it will actually swing lower. Whereas right now, it's just swinging down here somewhere because you're just rigidly sitting in that and kind of swinging from your shoulder. It's a little ridiculous, but eventually that won't be true because, like you've seen in the game, if you look down right now, you see through your torso because you're seeing straight down here, and that's not supposed to happen. If you bend over like this and you're looking straight down, you'll see your feet. And that's also cool if you're standing on the edge of something and you lean over, you should be able to see over the edge, right? The actual, the unreleased second version of the engine, that's the way it worked when you looked down. It leaned forward, which was pretty funny. If you were up next to a wall, right up next to a wall, and you leaned forward, it would move you back so that you could see down, which is really bad if you were standing on a ledge, because then you're standing here and you look down and you fall off the edge. So that'll be something to deal with at some point. But anyway, so we want to fix the default action to only work on drag, no, not on drag. And so I actually need to see if that is a function of the client or the server. So there's a hand manipulator. Yeah, main press, main click. What is the difference between main press and main click? Main click. If your last hit is not null, not if it's the same. Alright, so let's see what the tools are doing. What as the base object is doing. Base item, base object manipulator, default action. Who runs the default action? Main click object. I think what was happening, there was something I was trying to click the default action on. And because it used to be super strict, there was some, it was like really hard, maybe it was the right click that was really hard to do. But we are running the default action on main click object, which is being controlled by the client. Basically, the client sends that from the hand manipulator. So if we activate pressed, we set the last hit and then we release. I'm pretty sure there used to be some logic in here to see if you actually had moved or not. Or maybe it was that view change used to clear something and doesn't anymore. But like currently it's doing it. Yeah, so we set the last main hit. And then we don't unset it as we drag. And I feel like it used to. And Alt Activate is doing the same kind of thing. But can we... Right, I'm not sure I can easily fix this on the live stream. And if I get rid of default actions for the destructible objects, the thing is I'm thinking of is eventually, like if you come upon a chair and you chop it with an axe, it's supposed to chop that up too. And so we'll want to be able to chop any object eventually, in which case I'm going to really have to worry about this. So I'm going to add a to-do, see if we are still reasonably over the same location before deciding this is a click. Oops, not a lick, but a click. And actually this happens whether we had a hit before or not. Otherwise it's just a release, and then we'll have to do something with that. But for now, I can fix the problem in a different way by doing that no actions on the thingy. Temporarily lost the ability to speak. Base objects. Put this down here. Chop facsimile. We don't want any of the base object behavior. Yeah, we don't want initialize. We don't want name. We don't want look. We don't want move. We don't want any of this. If we get rid of this, and this, now it can only be chopped, I believe. Or we'll have another bug to fix. Man, I thought I'd finished my Pepsi, but I have not. Alright, let's see if we end up with chopped up grass again. I can tell you that fixing that weird shadow glitch is a super high priority all of a sudden. But it is kind of convenient that I can tell easily when I've accidentally chopped grass or something. Okie dokie. Ooh, look at all those calculating kinematics we're doing. Come on, let me change the time of day. Yeah, so falling on that, I think, is what... and we shouldn't be able to drag these anymore. So if I come over here... That's interesting that that one turned back into a block. Huh. So if I chop this... and then I chop it again... oh, why is it not clicking anymore? Okay, it is. That's a glitch that's still there. And it's a glitch that those others are still there too. It's the same problem of not showing up on the first click. Oh, I'm stuck. Oh. Interesting. Somehow my activity got stuck. Yeah, those first clicks didn't get registered and they bypassed the... It's the same problem of not getting the first block hit. But at least now I don't pop up the look every time I'm chopping. But somehow I get stuck chopping. And I don't know if that's because... Like, I'm not holding the mouse right now. You guys can't tell that. So something that was releasing the thing before is no longer releasing it. I think that... Perhaps the default action was... Because if I click now and release it, it fixes it. So something... I think because... Like if I do this and look away, yeah, so we got an error up there. It doesn't, so we got an error, so error running action main click object. So we have to implement main click object on the choppable object. We just don't do anything with it. Okay. Okay. So that's a problem. That's a problem. I hope this is still entertaining watching me debug these last little bits. So we want to do main click object. And then we want to do nothing with it. Do nothing. Okay. So that'll fix that problem. I want to somehow, during an activity, engage the kinematics. And I had started that. That's actually the part I disabled, I think, in the player driver. Yeah, see, we were calculating kinematics here. you know, something turns on. Yeah. So interesting. Let's think about this. There's an attachment system. Trying to think where I want to open it. Let's open it near here. So the attachment system, when you're holding an object, it sets the kinematic info on that part. Yeah, right there. But perhaps we really want to do that only when it's being swung. Or have some indication that it is being swung. So let's look up the kinematic info object, which I think is part of here. Yep. So can we grab the part has the kinematic info. Ouch. Just slam my elbow into the side of the desk. That's good. So let's maybe add a scale. Since effect of kinematic force. Okay, so then public void set scale. Scale equals scale. Public double get scale. Return scale. So I don't forget what I did this for. Sets the relative effect. Relative force of kinematic scale. Let's call it scale since this is what we called it. Scale of kinematic effects. For example, the difference between a tool that is engaged in a swing and a tool that is merely being animated as part of a walk cycle. Okay, so by default, so we could actually set this, well, it's 0 by default. So then we can turn it on and off as we swing things, presuming I can get the part. Can I get my attachment? So that's the other thing we have to check is, can the player driver okay, so that's useful too. So I can actually hack this in. I think this is called before. So we're just getting the information here to debug things. I'm not actually doing anything with it. But I think I can cheat. What I really want to do, and I don't think I have the capability here, is when the activity is started, look up attachment enable kinematic scale. But I don't think I have the easy way to look up the current attachment. Maybe I do. But that might be a deeper thing to look into, because I don't remember how they're managed off the top of my head. But in here, where I'm doing this new contact stuff, I should have access to the part. Yeah. So presuming that we are the ones swinging, rig equals name 1. Yep, we're already in here, so we are this thing swinging. Then I ought to be able to say K1 set scale 1, else K1 set scale 0. So so that basically sets the kinematic info for the thing I'm swinging to 1 or 0. And so then I think in the contact system, I can say if k1.getScale equals 0, log info skipping kinematic with scale 0 return. Okay, so let's see if that fixes that problem. Whoops. Oh, it's part of the open source stuff. So that is actually FizzB. Why is it called mblock FizzB? Because there was a fizz that I abandoned and renamed FizzB, which I did a different way. And the name's still that because I never renamed it. There used to be an mblock FizzA, but I eventually was able to convert all the demos over to use FizzB. Anyway, it's a refactoring problem. I had to keep both up for a while because I didn't want to go and fix all the old applications. I think the old mblock shapes were just a shape, and the new ones have like a hierarchy of parts that allow animation, which is why we can have doors that open and close, and animated objects that swing around as we're attached to them and stuff. Alrighty. Let's see if we fixed a bunch of stuff or not. So I shouldn't be chopping things anymore just by running around. So I should see a whole bunch of ignore. Ah, come on. Pause, tink. What is all of the logging flying by? It's still loading stuff, basically. Yeah, still loading things. I gotta get rid of a whole bunch of that logging. Oh my goodness. There we go. Logging finally got caught up. So I believe just running into stuff shouldn't create context anymore. Oh no! Okay, so something bad happened. Oh, player new contact. I guess that can still be null there. I thought the nulls had already been checked above. Let's fix a couple things here. First of all, Where's player driver? There it is. So K1, okay, so it might be null. Okay, so if K1 not equal to null, if K1 not equal to null, right? Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, so that's, yeah, because this is where we control the collision with the ground and stuff, whether we're standing on the ground. Okay, so can I see calculated kinematics, calculated kinematics, calculated kinematics? We need to, yeah, skipping. So that was all working, but I think we want to disable that debug logging completely. So we know this is working for now. And that's all the debug stuff. Okay, so for the moment, let's see if I fix that problem. Quiet chat tonight. I hope you guys are really still here and that YouTube's not just lying to me. Although it doesn't matter, I'd still be hacking away at this. I'm thinking of making a video on how the dungeon layout works. Oh, nice. What are you reading, if I can ask? Like young kid, like picture books level, or are you actually reading real literature by now? Oh, nice. Oh, perfect. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. So, hitting this should do nothing. Yeah, okay, good. Alright, let's see if chopping it still works. Boink. Yep, boink, 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 boink. And we did actually get a, there were some exceptions. So, hold on. And we're still stuck. Main click object. Okay, action not found, default action. Action not found for default action. Ah ha ha ha, I gotcha. Who is... oh, the tool is trying to call default action. Okay, so I implemented the wrong thing then. Okay, that's neither here nor there. The chopping thing works. The... what was the other thing? Oh yeah, being able... yeah, so this is also working. Like I can... oh. I need... oh yeah, I need to get rid of all the activity stuff. So let's... so there's a couple things to fix. First of all, we're going to go in activity and we're going to get rid of this. Yeah, that used to not be a problem, but I removed... so it used to be once you started your swing, like the pitch, the up-down part of the swing was locked in, and I turned that off because that was annoying. Because it's easy, it's nice to be able to just hold down the swing and move your mouse up and down and like knock different places. And I have a comment here on how to fix it differently if I choose to. Excuse me. So there's that. I was going to say something else back there too. So we fixed that logging problem. I need to fix the default action stuff, and that points to another bug, I think. So let's get, oops, default action. Oh, so it's just going to call default action. So we want to just, so this is actually where we want to do nothing. And perhaps default action should be a run if exists kind of situation. Click run default action, show prompt. So that's just showing the name. Uh-huh. Okay. So it takes an action. Yeah. And so if we click on the object, we potentially call it as well. So these should both be run if exists. And that makes this whole more compatible, and we don't need this at all anymore. Okay, so that should fix that problem. Was there anything else I needed to fix? I think that's the last thing. I think I was talking about something before I got on the sidetrack of bedtime stories. If anybody remembers. I was saying something about the chat being quiet, which is fine. I'd still be working on this. Then I thought of something. Oh man, I hate that when it happens. Total brain fart. I'll watch the live stream later. I go back and look, right? See what I was talking about. That'll be really frustrating too. Been in the real mood to create content lately. Like, oh, that's what it was. Speaking of creating content, I'm thinking of making an animation or like a video with animated parts and stuff showing how the dungeon creation algorithm works. And so this should be error free at this point. Boink, boink, oops, boink, 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 boink. And if we release, hey, we stop swinging the axe. Check it out. Boink, 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 boink. And I was wondering if anybody had any advice on 2D animation stuff to use. My inclination is to use Blender because I'm familiar with it, but perhaps there are better tools to use. The other thing about Blender is if I want to do some 3D, I could. It just seems like it'd be tedious and take a lot of time either way. But I kind of want to show what I tried to describe in previous videos about how I pick a bunch of random rooms and then I divide the space into a grid and how it lays it out. I just think it'd be fun to show people. I think that algorithm is useful for others to try for their games. So I would like to check it out, though. Check it out. Ooh, we get stuck in everything. Because that's the other thing, too, is like if you tried to use your pickaxe on a tree, I would really like to someday get to... Oh, no. Okay, so that was just this. That was this, not the... So, like, when you use your pickaxe on wood, I think it'd be cool is if your pickaxe got stuck, right? If you click just, it got stuck. Oh, boy. Yeah, there we go. To get that update that one time. There we go. We can chop through these things. But I think it'd be fun if your pickaxe got stuck, right? Boink. Boink. Okay, so that does that. I should be able to chop up the wattle and daub too. Brink. And that shouldn't happen. Like eventually, like wattle and daub's got to be done a different way, but it's still kind of fun. It's working. Of course, all these things will self-repair in a second. And again, there's a issue, but it's working. Neat. Yeah, the problem. So I'd like use it to like dig a little tunnel or something, but because I can't get those low blocks, there's actually like 2 levels of blocks I can't actually get, and I can't crouch, so But like, so we actually can't even use it to break into the wall here because we can't get the low enough down. Actually, I wonder if the axe itself is longer. Maybe the sword can get down there. Let's see. Can the axe get all the way down? Ah, the axe can get one level lower. So the irony of all this is that the reason I started this was because I wanted to be able to chop down trees, right? I've got an axe, and I've currently oh, yeah, check it out. So that's a problem, right? So the irony of all this is that I wanted to be able to chop down trees, and but trees are going to require special behavior because of their cylindrical shape. Like, I have to make a special kind of block object to represent them. So they're actually not going to get done. In fact, I've got to disable the ability to chop trees. The whole point of this was the whole original point of this was that if I got through here, the tree should fall over because I can turn that into a physical tree and make it fall over. In fact, it did. I think when I did this, it oh no, it says tree null, so apparently I didn't. But it used to be if I with this, if I just clicked on the tree, it would turn the tree into a block object that I had in my object container, and that does look kind of cool. But I have like something really cool planned for the trees. It's just going to take longer because what I want is like so imagine for a second that we had, I don't think we have square trunks anymore, right? Everything's round now. I think these are all, yeah. So I'm going to place one down. And I'm going to place a wood block to kind of show what I'm talking about. Oops, wrong key. Like, I'm wrapping up this. I've done everything. I've done everything and more that I wanted to get done today. Ironically, it's like unusual or unusually. Okay, so when I have like this, it's a cube. But it's possible to take a cube and reproject it as a cylinder. So if you think about this as being a cube, you know, it's got all these points here, and it's possible to take these points, and you know the center is here, and so you've got, you know, this arc, this arc, this arc, this arc, and so on. And it's possible to figure out, you know, where they would project to form a circle, and so then move them in, right? This is sort of a geometrical operation that I can put into the shader itself, potentially, or into the thing that generates the geometry. Maybe into the shader. I don't know yet. But to take a square block like this and turn it into a cylinder. And what that would allow me to do is define a version of this which is, you know, sort of the raw wood in the middle and bark along the edges. And in fact, if I just use a special material that's like a carved material, that for anything in the center it would use that wood, and for anything on the edge it would use the bark material, then I can chop it up and it would still stay round. I'd have to, you know, figure out the collisions and stuff, but I mean, all of this is possible. It's just work, and I don't think it's work that I want to have this release held up for. But it would be really cool because then as you chop into the tree, you know, you get little chunks of heartwood and bark and stuff, but the tree would stay round. It would still look round. I think it would look really cool. I saw a game that did something like that where chopping the tree was actually messing with particles of wood, and I thought it looked so cool. The thing is, when their tree was Oh, that's interesting. We don't even... It's not even registering my clicks against the trunk. That's... I was trying to do the C key to... Oh, yeah, it's not really there anymore. Interesting. Oh, it's not recognizing my clicks. So I've apparently broken the ability to stack cylinders in the game. I'll have to fix that too. Cylinder stacking is broken. I think it has to do with when I implemented the cylinder collision shapes. I probably did not implement... Yeah, that's what it is. I didn't implement ray collisions, so you can't actually click on things. Anyway, it was cool. The game, like as soon as you started to chop in, it was like the tree was full of wood particles. But the thing is, they were like shaking all around, like they were actually particles ready to explode. And I thought that looked really cool, but it like not right. You know, it was neat in a graphical sense, but not neat in a that really should be in the game sense. But the neat thing about that, me watching the video, is it showed me exactly how they did their tree, and that got me inspired on how I want to do my trees. And so it's just, oh God, I really want to be able to chop trees down. So that'll happen in the future, but it's unfortunate. I broke a bunch of things in this release that I have to fix before I can release it, and I just don't think I can take on making a block in cylindrical space, but it will be cool. I also have to see what kind of texture distortion. The thing is, it's already happening for this particular texture because that's how I mapped the texture coordinates to get it to go around the cylinder like that. Anyway, I think that's where I'm going to end it. Does anybody have any closing thoughts? Look at that spawn tower up there, way off in the distance. I've been taking a lot of pictures of clouds lately outside because the weather here has been really interesting, and I really, 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 really want clouds in here, and I've got a cool idea for those. So someday, probably shortly after flight. Anyway, I'm going to end it here. We'll do the regular thank yous. Please leave a comment if you think of anything you want to add. Maybe if I did eventually, or if you know of good 2D animation software that doesn't cost any money, because that's good too. I know there's like, Adobe already always has their answer, but I'm looking for, something free. But I'll probably just use Blender in the end if I do it. Anyway, let's go ahead and do the closeout stuff that I always have minimized down here. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far into the stream, the 4 of you that are still here, please like, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And if you go back in the video, you can see where you can download the thing, and we'll thank the patrons for the last time. That's where we'll close out the video. Thanks, guys. I hope you have a super productive week in whatever creative endeavors you do. If you're not on the Discord, get on the Discord and say hi. And if you are on the Discord, say hi anyway. I'll see you guys there. Thanks.